Okay, for this tutorial we're going to talk about Paperspace versus ModelSpace, and I'm going to briefly kind of show you how to use it. It can get a little tricky and a little complicated, so if you're really interested in it, and we will talk about it in future projects, but I encourage you to go to the help menu and look up as much information as you can, search online or on the AutoCAD website to kind of get a better idea of how it works. If what I teach you isn't enough, and of course feel free to ask me any questions you might have. Okay, first of all, when I open up AutoCAD, I don't have enough information on my screen to do what I need to do to work in Paperspace. So the first thing I want you to do is go down to the status bar and right click on it and then select Layout Model. And then added a few more buttons down here. And I also want you to select this icon right here and right click on it and choose Display, Layout, and Model tab. Okay, so this extra thing showed up down here, and so we need that to be able to kind of explain what the difference is. Okay, first of all, anytime you see this button down here says Model, you are working in ModelSpace. And again, ModelSpace is where everything is drawn at 1:1 ratio. So if it is on this drawing 1059.71 feet, you actually draw at 1059.71 feet. And that is ModelSpace. We draw everything at the actual size it is. In Paperspace, let's go to Layout 1. What you see is a sheet of paper. And here is this one that automatically comes with each drawing. You have a Layout 1 and a Layout 2. And it's what would show up on that sheet of paper. This box right here automatically shows up, and it is called a viewport. It's like looking through a window or a picture in a picture frame. So let's say this piece of paper that's showing here, this box, is the picture frame, and this box here is the picture or the window. And if I double click on the inside, it makes this bold, and this box down here now shows model. So now we're actually working in ModelSpace, but we're looking at it through Paperspace. It's like looking through a window. We're reaching into ModelSpace. And so now anything you do in here is actually doing it in ModelSpace. If you click the Model tab, we go back to Paperspace, and we're just working in this layout. A lot of people will draw everything in ModelSpace and not annotate it. And they'll come to the layout and they'll annotate it in Paperspace. And so they may annotate it on this piece of paper, and when they go back to model, so let me just show you an example. Let me write some text. I'm in Paperspace. You can see down here I'm in Paperspace, and I'm going to type some text. Johnson property. Okay. So here it is. It's showing up on my piece of paper. Now if I go back to ModelSpace, that text that I just drew is not in ModelSpace. It is only on Layout 1 that I wrote that text. It's not on Layout 2. It's only on Layout 1. So anything that you create on this page and this Paperspace won't actually be in ModelSpace. It won't be on that tab unless you click on that and you're in that viewport and this model is showing right down here on this button. Then anything you do in here is actually doing it on Paperspace. You can set up this page. So let's set up this page. Let's right click on Layout 1, and you can create a new layout. You can delete it, rename it, move it. And let's go to Page Setup Manager, and we're going to create the settings for this piece of paper. You can see here that layout 1 is plotting at 8.5 by 11 inches at landscape. So if we want to make it 11 by 17, let's modify it. And it comes up to your page setup for your plot style. So you can select your plotter here. You can select your paper size. And here where it says what to plot layout, that's where that setting comes in handy. We're going to plot this layout. And offset set, we're going to leave the scale at 1:1 because we're working 1:1 ratio in Paperspace. We're not working in scale units in this area. You can select your pin assignments, let's select the black and white, and leave everything the way it is and say OK. So now all these settings have changed. We can select close. Now you can see that my piece of paper got larger, but my viewport, my window, did not. And that is because on our model tab, we have our scale set at 1:200. We know what that setting needs to be. So when it created its viewport window, it created it at 200 scale. You can click on this and see the grips show up. You can make this larger. It won't make the drawing large, it'll just make the viewport larger so that you can see more of the drawing. You can click inside and pan, so you can move your drawing around within the window, and then again resize the window to what you want. Now you can see here that my Johnson property text is still showing up on the piece of paper. So this is the way you use Paperspace, and many people will use it for you could create it, so you have a version of this property that you printed out on 11 by 17. You could create a new one for 8.5 by 11 and another one for 24 by 36. Let's see, some settings you might want to change. Select it and then right click on it. Display locked. This is kind of important, and I usually say yes, I want to lock it, because if you're in Paperspace and you use your wheel to scroll, if you don't have that set, it'll rescale your drawing, and so you usually don't want to do that. You want to know it's 200 scale. So let me show you what it does. Let's turn that off, and I double click inside. Now when I scale, it's actually zooming in on the drawing. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that that's locked. And you can insert your title block here. So let's insert, and I'm going to find my title block, and I'm going to select insertion point on screen. I'm going to leave the scale at 1:1. And the dashed lines represent the limits of the paper or the printing area. So you want to keep your border and title block inside the dashed line. And again, my border and title block came in at 100 scale. So I'm going to have to zoom it down because this sheet is at 1:1. So this would be a point where you would not want it scaled up. But if you drew yours at 1:1, then it would work well. So I'm going to take it down to 0.1. Oh, that wasn't it. Sorry, 0.01. 0.01. No, that wasn't it either. That was it. Bear with me. There we go. Okay, so I can bring my title block in here. Again, if you drew it at 1:1, it would work out really well for you. And again, mine is a block, and so it's all one object. I'll have to hit explode, this explode tool, to separate it all so that I can edit things on my title block. But you can move the viewport around so that it's placed where you want it to be placed. And then you can set up your sheet just however you need to set it up in this way. So that's basically how the Paperspace works. And again, my title block's on the piece of paper and it is not in model space. No matter how far you zoom out or zoom in, you will not be able to find it because it's only in Paperspace. Okay, so I know it's a quick and probably not enough of an explanation of how model and Paperspace works, but again, I encourage you to look into the help menu and ask me any questions that you might have. And we'll probably play with this feature a little bit more when we get to plan and profile sheets, because that's where it really comes in handy. You can probably tell I don't normally use it here. I wasn't taught that way. I know how to use it, but I don't use it regularly. For most part, I put my title block in model space and print directly from model space, annotate everything in model space. But you could just not dimension or annotate anything until you got to your layout. But with AutoCAD's feature of being able to annotate using an annotative text, when you change your scale, it changes the text size. So I don't find it necessary to have to do that on a model space or Paperspace. But anyways, feel free to ask me any questions you might have about this, and hopefully you have gained some understanding of how it works.